Welcome to Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose. We're in the PBS studios in Wichita, Kansas, the air capital of the world. We're going to talk to a very special pilot that has a very special project. Sean Mack was a fighter pilot, and today he's doing something very special for wounded veterans. Sean, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we got a hot tip that you're a humble man, but you have a really amazing story. So Warfighter Scuba, what in the world is that about?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you the start of all this. 15 years ago, I was invited to go to the beach in Roatan, Honduras, and it was just for a vacation. And I ran into the lady that runs the orphanage in a little place called Coxon Hole. One thing led to another, so we started devoting our lives to serving the Hondurans. David Dashner and his wife Brenda run the Honduran Abundant Life Association, and they have built homes, we've built churches, we've built 2 schools, and I have an agriculture project at Operation Blessing from Virginia Beach, Pat Robertson's group. They did a beautiful agriculture project over in Antigua, Guatemala. So I went over there and I learned about that and hired the man that would help us build it. So we have an agriculture project in Roatan that feeds the neighborhood, and that's how this whole thing started. A few years later, I ran into Nick Powers, who is the president of Warfighter Scuba, and we instantly hit it off. He was probably for protection, he's 6'7" in this big, huge Marine, but we became fast friends, and he asked me to join his board. He, at that time, had started it in 2017 with a passion for helping veterans with no money. So he is a web designer, and he put his money to bringing the first team of his own money down to Roatan. And I saw his passion and how it changed people's lives, and I had to jump in because my expertise is my networking. With my job, I get to touch base with some very influential people. And so through that mechanism, we've had a chance to raise money. We've had the opportunity the last 5 years to bring 130 veterans through our program. We still have over 400 on the list. Once the VA did a magazine article on us, it just blossomed. There were 3,000 applicants that week. And so we had to put one filter in, and the filter is a Purple Heart. So we jump on how they were wounded, what happened to them, and what is the challenge that they're going through. Warfighter Scuba has adapted over the years. We have a mission statement that is actually in flux right now because we've learned that it's not just about the veteran. Yes, he suffers. Yes, he's lost his legs, but is he on his own now? Has his wife left him? So our mission statement is about healing. 22 vets a day put a gun in their mouth. And so we are about healing suicide and preventing divorce. Mm-hmm. That's our mission.
So why scuba? How does that help?
We thought it was just this. This is a book by Wallace Nichols. It's called The Blue Mind, and he teaches how we are connected to water and how water actually does heal us. And Jacques Cousteau has a quote in here that says, "The sea, once it casts its spell, holds one in the net of wonder forever." People protect what they love. And if you think about that, you protect what you love, the sea draws you back. Initially, we thought it was just the healing power of the sea. Mm-hmm. You get underwater and it's so calming and so peaceful. And we had success right from the beginning, but we didn't understand why. You can imagine a SEAL team member, a Special Forces operator, joins with their team for years, and you become closer than family, closer than brothers. And you go out on a mission one day and boom, you're blown up. You lose your legs or your arm, you wake up in the hospital and you're alone. Your team is gone. Maybe your family is gone. These soldiers are alone. And so what we've learned is that we bring them back as a team, and we get them underwater where they have to rely on each other and they have to build teamwork together. And after a week of reconnecting, they understand again that they are not alone, that they are a part of a team, and they're cared for. No one left behind.
So are you working with them in advance, teaching them scuba skills before they get there? Or do you start the entire learning process there?
Great question. We are teamed with SSI, who have been just an amazing organization that have donated everything. All the written work, most of the equipment, and the expertise. So yes, we work with them. We get in the pool, we start them off, and even the SEALs, we put in the pool with us at first, because it might have been 5 years since they've been in the water. We just need to know where they're at.
So much can happen when you get in the water. If you should panic, I would imagine.
Yes, right. I've never had a SEAL panic yet, but there's always the first, right?
They had some good training.
They have some very good training, yes.
So what kind of transformations have you witnessed?
You know, one gentleman that comes to mind is now on our board. Omar, yes, he is, his call sign is Crispy. He came down with his wife. He was blown up with an IUD in Afghanistan, lost both his legs, and he is totally burned, transformed into Crispy. He was despondent when he came down. And his attitude was such that, you know, he and his wife were working things out, right? But she's just a gem, sticking with him, and they're a beautiful family still. But he was so transformed and so impressed that he came to us and started working with us, and he's become part of our board.
And so do you primarily live there now?
No, I live in Austin with my wife, and I run my own business. I stopped flying for Delta about 11 years ago, actually. So David Dashner brought me into his office one day at the peak of my career, just starting to make good money as an airline pilot. And he looks me in the face and says, "What do you want to do? Keep making money or change the world?" So I quit flying for Delta. And this is my passion. And what I've learned about life is when you do something that you love, you live bigger and better.
So what convinced you to be inspired by that and quit your big job?
The biggest thing was to see differences that we were making in Honduras. Gene Albert, who owns Infinity Bay, was talking to me one day, and he had an issue with one of his employees. One of the maids just couldn't get it right. I mean, just couldn't get it clean enough. And so he threw his hands up, and as Gene will, he participates in people's lives, and he went to her home. And when he saw her in her kitchen trying to clean food on this slab of stone, and the muddy water dumping into her living room and running out the door, he started crying. And he told me about that. And we went on a church group through the neighborhood to see how people's lives were being impacted. We would take red beans and rice and save people from starving. In fact, one time I was talking to this lady and asked her, "Do you have running water?" And she goes, "Oh, yes, we have running water." And she pointed to a spigot, a common spigot out in the yard. So they have so very little, and they're so happy. So we spent a year hauling cinder blocks up to a little place called Helene. You can't get to it by a road. You have to haul everything by boat. But Larry Benson ran the mission on that end of the island, and to watch him sacrifice his life, he was going to be there for 6 or 7 years. This is 30 years later. And to watch someone give up their life so that other people can change theirs and live, that was impactful to me. My wife and I decided that we had enough money, and it was time to figure out, when I grew up, what did I really want to be in life? Mm-hmm. And so we had a chance to go back and ask people, what's important to you? Mm-hmm. What do you need? And many times in Honduras, they'll give you a list a mile long, but you just spend time with them. And it's about not just giving them something, it's about showing them something.
So you could just be happy and retired in Texas, but yet you're doing all of these things and challenging yourself to accomplish so much. Did having that experience as a fighter pilot yourself have something to do with that?
When you see one of your buddies come back or not come back, that's life-changing. You know, I've seen at a red flag the explosion where you know your buddy just died. Mm-hmm. And or the veterans coming back with tears in their eyes because of what they've just been put through. And big, burly men, you know, we don't cry, but when you sit there and hold each other and you're bawling your eyes out, mm-hmm. because the hurt that you see in them, mm-hmm. that changes things. And that changed me. Like I said before, as a fighter pilot, you're taught to be invincible. You can't walk out to that airplane and think, maybe I'll make it, maybe I'll come back. The Air Force teaches you, you are invincible. That's a little bit hard to live with at home. And my wife and I had struggles to work through. But once I got away from that and I did things like Discovery in Dallas, it's a self-help group that we do a weekend at a time, and you see people's lives changing. You go, I can actually do that. I can actually contribute to somebody's well-being where they're not the same anymore. Mm-hmm.
Talk about an important mission.
Well,
and, you know, an older veteran helping these younger veterans that are having such a hard time. They must really appreciate and respect what you're doing. And do they often ask you your story? Where did you serve?
They do, and of course I try not to make it about me very much. But I was a very incredible career. After Vietnam, they didn't need pilots, so when I joined, it was, yeah, you might make it, you might not. Well, I did well in college, and when I went to Del Rio, Texas, I was this little teeny from Loyal, Wisconsin, with all these guys from MIT, Virginia Tech, the Air Force Academy, and I just looked around and went, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And I learned that I was created to be a pilot. Nothing that I did, it's always been very easy to me. So I graduated #1 in my class from Del Rio, then I graduated #1 in my class in the F-15, and it's been a mission ever since. But that mission enabled me to accomplish this one. Mm-hmm. The only time that you fail is when you quit. just like negotiation. The only time you fail in negotiation is when you stop. So just keep asking, just keep wondering, and there's always another veteran that needs help. And if we can prevent one vet from putting that piece in their mouth, we've done our mission.
Do you have veterans that struggle sometimes with the thought of going on this trip and have this experience? Maybe they don't feel like they measure up.
Yes, we do. What's really interesting about that is they think that it's harder than it really is. I mean, we hand them an airplane ticket. We tell them that they're going to go into this resort and everything's going to be taken care of. And we've had veterans back out at the last minute, just saying either I'm not worthy or I can't do it. I don't have any legs, or my wife won't go with me. It's hard for people, but on the flip side of that, we've had veterans that say, boy, I almost didn't come. This is incredible. This is amazing. And so we put them in charge with the veterans coming down and just encourage them to talk to them and say, it's going to be okay. This is going to work out.
I think hearing it from another vet would make a big difference, especially a vet that hesitated on going and then has a great story to share.
Absolutely. It really does. I was talking to Clint Bruce a couple weeks ago, and he was the NFL, I think it was a linebacker, that when 9/11 happened, he quit the NFL and went and joined the military. He became commander of SEAL Team 5 for years. Well, I'm sitting there talking to him, and I go, hey, do you know that Joe Hahn is an instructor for us? And he goes, Joe Hahn, he's twice the SEAL I ever was. So that's the kind of quality people that are working with us. Joe Hahn was a SEAL Team 6 guy, and he is an amazing man. We're really fortunate to have him.
So were you a scuba diver before this?
I shouldn't tell you this, but I was a scuba diver in 1975. Yeah, when I was a sophomore in college, I learned how to scuba dive and been loving it ever since.
Since 1975, so where are the different places that you've scuba dived, and how does it compare with this place in Honduras?
Well, the biggest one has probably been in Wisconsin, where I've dove with ice on the lake. That's a little bit different, and you can imagine there's safety things that you have to do there. During Operation Just Cause, we were in the A-10 in Panama. So I took a couple buddies and we snuck away and went scuba diving when we were down there, because we took the squadron of A-10s for a show of force down in Panama. And then I've had a chance to dive over in Hawaii, and Roatan has been my biggest love because it's so unique. The difference of being underwater, people that have never experienced it, there's a connection and a peacefulness. At first, there's a terror when you have never done it and you have to put this mask on and try to breathe through this tube. Your body says, nope, I'm not going to do it. But you get through that, and in 5 minutes, just like my kids, the first time I took them, my daughter had a panic attack. And I said, well, okay, you're not going to scuba. You're not going to just stay there. And then I asked her to put her face mask on and take a look at her brother down there. And then I had said, could you just put the regulator in your mouth and take a look? And she's going on and said, I lifted her up and said, Carrie, you've been scuba diving the last 10 minutes. You've been underwater. She goes, really? And she just, down she went. So we have a special bond, my daughter and I. But yeah, there's that thing that is so unique and so different that it leaves the world behind.
Why does it leave the world behind?
You don't have the sense of smell that you have here, so your other senses concentrate on different things. For example, vision becomes so acute, the color and the beauty that is happening, and the sounds. There's a very rhythmic blowing of the bubbles, and unless somebody's banging on their tank saying, hey, there, we've had this like shark right there, or whatever. But it's a different environment where it allows you to back up and not be in the minutia of the world. There's, like I said, a peacefulness that it's unique to this environment. And there's things like, one of my favorite times ever was I was diving and it was just torrential rain. And I never knew this, but you look up and because of the fresh water that's on top, it turns the water into a mirror. So as you're looking up, there's this reflection and it's surrealistic. It's like you're flying.
Wow.
It's gorgeous. It's just beautiful.
So how has it changed bringing the wives along? And what have you witnessed in the wives participating in this?
The wives bring such a beautiful change to it, because when a veteran comes down by himself and he says he's having trouble at home, we can't really address that. We can work on him, right? And enable him to get even his communication skills. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we've learned is that alcohol is a coping mechanism, and a lot of these vets cope with alcohol or drugs. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing we ask them to sign, is that we're not going to cope, we're going to deal with your issues. And so there's no alcohol or drugs allowed in this at all. Mm-hmm. And some of the wives communicate with us going, really? My husband didn't drink for a week? Really? That's a very positive thing. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, when the spouse, either man or woman, the spouse comes accompanying, you can see the bond. Mm-hmm. Usually they team up together underwater too. Sometimes when there's two women, they would rather team up together, and that works out just fine too. But we do see the difference, and we do see the healing and the bonding going on.
And have you had female veterans come down for healing as well?
We sure have. We have had a veteran that she was blown up twice. The entire left side of her body is titanium. Mm-hmm. And she was at a fundraiser with us in Houston years ago and gave a beautiful talk of how warfighters contributed to her healing.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad I asked you that question, because at first I thought we were just talking about male soldiers, but I'm glad I asked that. Well, it's very sad that female soldiers are experiencing some of the same horrific injuries.
Right.
And I'm so glad that all of our soldiers with Purple Heart that are willing to go, that this might be an opportunity for them to have some real healing.
Absolutely. In fact, Connie Johnson is on our board, and she was wounded. Mm-hmm. And just so everybody knows, this is not just for U.S. veterans. It is open also to NATO veterans that have been wounded.
Well, good work, soldier. Thank you so
Katherine.
much for what you're doing. I'm so inspired.
Thank you.
I'm so inspired. Maybe I'll sign up for some scuba.
I was going to say, come see us.
Okay.
Yeah, come on down.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been my pleasure.
And thank you for watching. If you have questions about this topic or anything that we cover, please reach out at 316-686-4500 or email us at empoweringseniors@kpts.org. I'm Katherine Ambrose, and I'll see you on the next Empowering Seniors.